Welcome to the Startup Leader Show, where we learn lessons from leading startup founders and executives. I'm your host, Lisa Dreher. I'm really excited to introduce our guest today, Kirsten Curry. She's the president and founder of Leading Retirement Solutions. They're an innovative employer-sponsored retirement plan provider. Welcome to the show, Kirsten.
Great. Thank you, Lisa. It's great to be talking with you today.
Absolutely. Thanks for making time for this. I really want to jump in and have you give our audience just a little bit of background on Leading Retirement Solutions and how you came to start this company.
Yeah, you bet. Well, Leading Retirement Solutions primarily supports companies and entrepreneurs, and we do this with a lot of retirement savings types of plans. Think 401k, 403b for nonprofits, ESOPs, defined benefit plans, and more. I actually started the company about 12 years ago, right in the wake of the big market crash. So the old adage, there's a best time and a worst time to get the business started can apply. But I had really developed a passion, particularly for retirement plans and doing a lot of unique work with them. So launched my own company with a couple of business partners so that I could pursue that endeavor. And from there, to current day, we've got 20 team members and growing. We serve a little over 1,200 clients in all 50 states.
Wow, that's amazing. That sounds like a just phenomenal growth trajectory.
It is. We've definitely gone through our phases of growth along the way as well. So in the process of taking the company to the next level as I speak.
Oh, absolutely. Well, I want to get into that in a minute, but maybe tell me a little bit about maybe some of the trends that you're keeping an eye on right now in your industry.
Yeah, that's actually a great question because there are some very typical trends we're keeping an eye on, right? In the wake of COVID, there's been very interesting financial turbulence. And what's been interesting about that for our company is we are one of those unique 401k companies that does a lot of work in the non-traditional investment space. We are getting call after call from folks that want to invest their money in something other than the traditional stock market. And so, even recently this past year, we've been supporting access to digital assets. You go out to any of the traditional and big 401k plan providers and you can't get access to that. So, it's interesting. There are some common demands that we're seeing in the industry that there are just very few companies like ours out there that are able to fulfill and help clients actually be able to access those types of things. Beyond that, there was some major legislation that was passed last year in the wake of COVID affecting retirement plans. And so, some of the things that we're seeing are a lot of employees that are needing money and they're coming to the retirement plan. So how do you do that? How do you get that money there to support their financial needs, but also continue to encourage that retirement savings behavior? Right?
Yeah.
That's a big challenge that our industry is facing now as well.
Absolutely. So what does that mean for the business leader? So, the companies that you're supporting, what do they need to do to kind of stay ahead of some of these things that are happening? And are there things that they can be doing to support their employees in continuing those smart retirement investments?
Yeah. One of the most significant needs that businesses, company owners, and the key executives need is just guidance. There were so many regulatory changes made in 2020 due to COVID that affect retirement plans. And so it's been really hard for companies and business owners to keep up with, well, what's allowed by way of a 401k plan now? And the more important question, how can we help our employees? Right? Yeah. Are there changes that have been made to 401k plans, or are there changes that we can make to better support our employees and their financial savings needs? So that's definitely a number one. And it takes a lot of time and effort by our team to make sure that they are versed and skilled and are experts in the constantly changing regulations, which we're not necessarily used to. In the retirement plan space, we tend to get a heads up years in advance that new regulations are coming down the road. And last year, that was not the case.
Wow. So what's been one of those most, I guess, the highest impact, or I don't know, most challenging changes that has occurred that companies are struggling with?
The challenge overall, and this does tend to happen with retirement plans, we will get guidance from the government and the guidance won't be clear enough. Not because the government hasn't tried to provide clear guidance, but there are so many different situations that we're trying to apply the regulations to. And let me give you an example from 2020, PPP forgiveness, right? The payroll loan forgiveness. The 401k plan industry started getting all kinds of questions from companies and business owners. Well, if we put PPP money into the 401k plan, will it be considered forgivable, right? And initially, the guidance wasn't clear. We couldn't give a blanket yes, right, to all of our clients. And furthermore, that's not really a 401k question. That's more of a corporate question, right? Like we can't necessarily tell you if the government is going to give your corporation forgiveness if you put some money in the plan. That was a really interesting demand that emerged on our industry. And of course, we want to help our clients, right? We are all about helping companies and business owners reduce taxes, take advantage of tax deductions, tax credits, and of course, offer a good client attraction and retention tool for them as well. So it was an interesting position to be in.
Yeah. Wow. I know as a business owner, I end up maybe asking the wrong questions to the wrong people in my, all of my experts, right? Because sometimes those things overlap a little bit, right? And so it's just, sometimes there isn't someone with the answer, right?
And truer words couldn't have been spoken with a PPP loan, because oftentimes we would give our clients some guidance, but say, hey, you really need to go talk to your CPA. The CPAs were in the same position. They're like, we just don't have clear enough guidance. Go talk to your bank, so.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I can feel that pain. Absolutely. Well, so we invited you here to talk a little bit about, the lessons that you've learned along the way in starting Leading Retirement Solutions, and maybe help us learn a little bit from the lessons you've learned over the years. So let's jump into those questions. And the first one I have is really just about, what have been the biggest keys to your success so far?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I was really excited as I was reflecting on this question over the last couple of weeks. More recently, it's become apparent to myself and the company that one of our biggest keys to our business success is our focus on niche industries and also niche client demographics. What do I mean by that? I mean, we've been doing a lot of work for, say, women-owned and minority businesses. We've been doing a lot of work for underserved industries. The cannabis industry, there's nearly 1 million workers employed by that industry, and they can't get a 401k plan from the traditional 401k plan providers. And so, years ago, we started offering support to that industry. But it's definitely become apparent over the last number of years, particularly, that our focus with these niche industries and niche client demographics, it's been paying off for our company, right?
Mm-hmm.
We take very traditional looking 401k plans, but because we're willing to be very innovative and provide solutions and support in these types of niche areas, it's resulted in greater, stronger partnerships, more opportunity to get our face out there. Mm-hmm. I'm very fond of telling my business owners, your biggest challenge isn't generally going to be selling, it's getting people to realize you exist. Right. Yeah. And so focusing on these niche industries has really helped kind of to perpetuate our brand nationwide as well. So I think number one key has been the focus on niche industries. I think secondly is our focus on our commitment to our team. My focus to our team, I am often heard saying that my team is the most important thing to the company. It is the number one priority, and we make really significant commitments to our team. It started very early on when I brought on a full-time human resource manager onto the company. Even though I was being told by, peer groups and other leaders, hey, you're too small for that, outsource it. And I felt very strongly that having somebody really committed to HR, not just from a compliance perspective, but helping to build and maintain a really strong culture was important to me and the company. From there, we've done things like, I think it was 4 years ago now, we launched a bonus or a profit pool, and it's company-wide. Every employee has the opportunity to share in this bonus and profit plan if we hit certain metrics as a company come year end. So the second key to the success is really our focus on and commitment to the team that makes the company what it is, the success.
Wow, that's amazing. I think a lot of companies say that, but then it's kind of how do you actually act that out? And wow, those are some really significant ways to do that.
Yeah. And it's not like it hasn't come without its trial and error, right? But
sure.
But we learn and grow, every time. So, and it's been incredibly helpful to really have that dedicated human resource team. We now actually have, 3 people on that team to really help with that.
Wow. So when you think back over the years, what would you say has been maybe the most valuable lesson, or maybe there's a couple, I don't know, that you've learned over the years?
Yeah. As an entrepreneur, you're going to get a lot more no's and closed doors than you would have ever expected. Going into my entrepreneurial journey, it's just not something I had really thought about or would have expected. I think in combination with that, it's having the awareness and understanding of how important it is to, as an entrepreneur, be able to power through those no's, right? I think one of the unique aspects of being an entrepreneur is in the face of adversity. As you come up against challenges, you don't take that no, you seek solutions. You try to find a way around or over. You don't give up, you don't sit down. And really, as an entrepreneur, you have to learn to operate and, more importantly, make decisions. And a lot of times big decisions in the face of discomfort and adversity, right? So I think that was one of the things for me, is trying to get as comfortable as possible in making really important decisions, from this uncomfortable space, right? As an entrepreneur, oftentimes trying new things and doing things differently. And, I can tap into my mentors and my peer groups to get guidance and ultimately decide what I think the best decision may be. But it tends to be an uncomfortable decision nonetheless.
Yeah, absolutely. Are there other things that you've done aside from, connecting in with peer groups and things like that to help you, I don't know, wade through those difficult, decisions, especially when sometimes there's not, like, both decisions are either equally bad or equally good. And so, it's kind of, how do you choose how to go forward?
Yeah, I mean, I do have to say that the peer groups has been a really important aspect to what I do. I run the company on my own. And so, I'm in Women Presidents Organization as an example, and I'm very fond of saying to the women entrepreneurs in my group, you're my business partners, right? I've got this decision and I want to knock heads with you guys. But I also take that similar approach with my management team. If I'm looking to make a decision that's going to affect the company, I enlist my managers in a very similar, manner, and I'll maybe present them with two different scenarios. I'll kind of whittle it down, and we'll talk about the pros and cons, and really enlist in them and in helping me to make a decision. There's other things that we've done where, we've enlisted a SCORE mentor. The Small Business Administration has the SCORE program. And a number of years ago, I really wanted some good, experienced eyes to do a tandem budget review with us. We were making some pretty significant changes to our budget for the year. And so we had a great SCORE mentor. He's got a CPA background, I think a semi-retired CPA, and came in and helped us. So those have really been important activities that I've engaged in to help me make those strategic, tough decisions.
Yeah, absolutely. I would definitely second the SCORE mentor thing. I have a great SCORE mentor, and yes, been very valuable.
Such a great program.
Absolutely, I agree. So if you were to kind of go back and start all over, what would is there some piece of advice you would give yourself?
Yeah. There's a couple of things, particularly for myself, based on what I've experienced on my entrepreneurial journey. One would have been to get a degree in business. And that is definitely a hindsight thing. I grew up, knew at a very young age that I wanted to be an attorney, political science background, pursued my law degree. Very thankful that I am an attorney, but there's a lot that you learn in business school that now, my primary role is building the company. Right? Yeah. It's not really performing discrimination testing on 401k plans. It's building this enterprise. And so, having a business degree or some, business background, I think would have been one of the things I'd recommend to myself in hindsight. Secondly, and this was a big one early on in the journey of, creating leading retirement solutions, would have been to choose better business partners. I started the enterprise and a couple of other companies with two other business partners, and the business partnership imploded very, very quickly. And so, it stunted the progress of leading retirement solutions. We engaged in litigation because a couple of us were attorneys, and that took, a while. So, and once we got through all of that, the growth, the trajectory of leading retirement solutions has just been, a great upward one. But, I think that this is a suggestion to anybody that goes into business, be intentional about selecting your business partners, be clear about what your responsibilities are going to be to each other, work to have that documented, agreements in place.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things, I think you kind of alluded to this a little bit earlier, just in the growth. And one of the things that I've run into a lot and seen other entrepreneurs kind of struggle with is that you have a tendency now and again in the business to sort of hit these plateaus in the business, and figuring out how to scale past that sometimes can be a challenge. Have you experienced that, and what have you done to kind of scale past those plateaus?
Yeah, this is a really great question. And I have to tell you, there's two distinct times in the evolution of leading retirement solutions where I can think of where we did plateau. And how we got through that plateau, there was a couple of things that we did. As you can imagine, earlier on in the company's growth, we tended to cast a wide net, right? That tends to be pretty typical for small growing enterprises. And so when we hit our first plateau, we actually took the opportunity at that plateau to bring our focus in, right? You heard me talk about some of the unique work that we do. So non-traditional investments in 401k and defined benefit plans, accessing real estate, hard money lending, digital assets, joint ventures, private placements, and the like. And so what we did is we diverted a lot of our resources and attention to that service offering. We had the marketing team really focused on creating content, creating buyer personas around, that particular type of clientele and need and desire. We had our team start to build out enhancing technology to, take supporting those types of investments to the next level, created more operational protocol, and stuff like that, and then really putting that out there in the marketplace. So, so again, it's when we hit that plateau is actually making a decision, hey, we're going to actually commit a bunch of resources. We have faith in this particular niche. We're going to put a lot of resources in it, enhance our offering, and put it back out in the marketplace.
Yeah.
So I think that's one of the most impactful things that we've done to get through the plateau. But secondly, too, and I mentioned this earlier, the greatest challenge for entrepreneurs is really brand recognition. Getting people have to know about you before you even can get the opportunity to sell to them. And so it was also just focusing our marketing efforts. We started doing a lot more social media, a lot more brand presence to help get us through that plateau, getting us more recognition across the country in traditional, type of industries as well as the niche industries.
Yeah, that completely makes sense. That's great advice. I want to end with one more question, and that is, if you were to make one prediction about the future, and it could be business in general or about retirement plans or what have you, what would that one prediction be?
We have actually been talking about this within my company and amongst the team for probably a little over a month now. Particularly with respect to our industry, and I suspect there are many more industries out there that are also experiencing this as well. We no longer have a down period. In the 401k plan industry, and especially last year with all of the regulations, we have been going nonstop for over a year. It used to be where there'd be small pockets of a couple of week period after we got done with the October 15th, big filing deadline. We'd have a couple of weeks of breathing room to regroup. That kind of stuff doesn't happen. And I'm concerned about the workforce, our workforce, right?
Yeah.
When we're working at 110%, I can keep throwing people at it, but that's not going to solve the problem that we're facing, and that is that there just isn't downtime. And so we've actively been having to start conversations internally. What do we do to the work environment to acknowledging that things aren't going to change for our industry for a while. We're going to be constantly on the go. So how can we change the way we work or how we work or worse? Something that we've actually been doing for the last couple of years that I think has worked really well and is a part of this answer. We've had a number of employees that have actually gone to part-time with us. And particularly with COVID, we had some, parents with kids, and we agreed for them to be able to go part-time. And I have to tell you, it has worked very well for not only the employee, of course, but also for the company. And so I could, that's one of the things we've been talking about internally is, do we offer more opportunities for part-time plan administrators to come on board with us? It seems to work well for them from a work-life balance, right? Yeah. And how can we make it work for the company as well? So.
Absolutely. Hey, so if you have time to hang out just for a minute, we actually received a live question here, and I really like this question. We might have to add this to the standard list. And it is that a planned exit strategy is often overlooked by small business owners. Do you have any advice, or have you even thought about this for leading retirement solutions?
Oh, yeah, that's a good question. I read that book or I listened to that Audible once. I can't remember the name of it, but it's build to sell,
Yeah,
right? You
yeah,
should
yeah.
build your company in anticipation of selling it. I get asked this question a lot. And I'll be quite frank, I don't have an exit strategy at this point. My response when I get asked that question is, hey, I still feel like the company is in its infancy, even though we're 12 years old, and I'm really enjoying building and have lofty goals for the company. We've got our 3-year strategic plan in place. So, with respect to advice, I think one thing is to be comfortable communicating to people that you may or may not have a plan, but to also be thinking about it. Something that I very intentionally engaged in several years ago was some disaster planning, right? If I'm not around, the company will provide for a board to collect and, make decisions about the continued operation of the company. And this board consists of folks in the industry, CFO, technology experts and the like. So assembling a good board of business advisors to continue to take care of the company. So that doesn't necessarily answer this question head on, what is my exit strategy? But I do think it's important whether or not you have an exit strategy, to make sure that you've got some intentional plans in place to move the company forward, regardless of what happens with the people, right?
Yeah.
So I'm not here to run it. What happens?
Yeah. I mean, I think we so often just like cross our fingers and hope for the best, but hope's not a great strategy. So that is really good advice.
Yeah, that was a good question.
Absolutely. Thank you, Dawn. In any case, I really want to thank you for making time to be here today, Kirsten. This has been so enlightening, and I know that I appreciate, and everyone out there really appreciates the advice that you're sharing with us today. So thank you so much, and we really look forward to speaking with you again in the future.
Yeah, thank you for having me, Lisa. It was great to be on.
Absolutely.